What's up? What is going on? Welcome to another episode of Hey Mark, the podcast where I, Mark, get to have open and authentic conversations about things like mental health and self-development. The reason I started this podcast is because I want to try and help some of the people that are out there suffering in silence, some of the people that don't know maybe how to put words to what they're talking about or thinking or feeling or some of the emotions that they have. They don't know who to talk to or just, like I said, what they are exactly specifically going through. And if they do know and they feel alone, my goal is to just let someone listen to this and hear it and understand, maybe they'll connect with it and understand maybe, hey, you know what? I'm not alone in what I'm dealing with, the specific situation, and life can and will get better for me. And so that is basically the message I'm trying to spread. If you're down with that shit, if you're down with that message, you're going to enjoy this podcast. Please share the show and help me grow. If you're not down with that message, you're probably going to fucking hate this and you should probably listen to something else. That being said, I'm going to jump into the discussion that I feel like is important today. And I want to kind of just talk about one of the experiences that I've had recently and just kind of talk about how I struggled with it, how I overcame it, and what lessons I learned from that as well. And so in the last couple of years, obviously health has become a high priority for me. I wanted to make sure that I was ready to face anything that came my way, whether that be in my physical or mental health, whether that be in my personal life, my private life, my relationships, etc. Health became a huge priority for me. And so I stopped smoking cigarettes a couple years ago. I started doing a little bit more cardio. When I first started running and doing my cardio, I literally couldn't even run a kilometer without having to fucking stop and literally puke and walk the rest of the way because I was so out of shape. My cardio was in such a bad place. And so I started off by biking because I couldn't run well, and I would go for walks. And then I eventually got to the point where I could get it up to some runs, right? So I could run like 3 kilometers at a time or 5 kilometers at a time. And then I went for my first 10K. And then in 2021, I went for my first half marathon. I really wanted to push myself. And so the most I had run before my half marathon, I think, was actually only 7 kilometers. And then I tripled that, did the 21 kilometers at a half marathon, which was fucking brutal. And I didn't prepare well enough for it. I ended up fucking really cramping up pretty bad. And I was rocked. That half marathon rocked me. And so coming to the end of 2021, I had actually gone through an injury of fracturing my heel. And then I had to rebound myself and get back into kind of walking without crutches. Actually, walking on crutches and then walking without crutches and then being able to kind of put a little bit more weight, go back to work. Obviously, in construction, you need to have both feet. And then I got back into doing some running and I kind of tested myself with doing like okay, I'm going to jog for 5 minutes and see how I feel. Then I built up to a 10-minute run, 20-minute run, half hour. I was doing like 5Ks, and then I was trying to do some 10Ks, and I got there as well. And I figured, I want to challenge myself before the year ends. And this is where I kind of, this is where the story really gets to be, I guess, important or valuable for other people, because I started to think about how I could challenge myself. And I was like, well, maybe I could revisit that half marathon. I've overcome this injury. But something about that just kind of makes me feel like, okay, I haven't really progressed. I'm still at the same spot. And something was calling me to start to run longer than a half marathon. And so I have this group on WhatsApp, which you guys have heard me talk about before. We chat about mental health and self-development and stuff like that. And so I figured, why not run 1 kilometer for every person that's in that group? That's more than 21K. So that was 30 people in the group at the time. And so that meant a 30-kilometer run. But I knew deep down when I was trying to explain a 30-kilometer run to people, they were like, is that like a full marathon? And I was like, well, no, it's not quite. And they're like, okay, is it like a half a marathon? And I was like, well, it's more than that. And it was kind of obscure. It felt weird. And something inside me felt like I was like, maybe I should just shoot for a full marathon. But I didn't think I could do it. And so I was scared to say that out loud to people. And so I told people, I'm just going to run 30 kilometers. And, if you follow me on Instagram, you kind of know how the story goes. And the long and short of it is I ended up hitting my 30K And then pretty much right after that, I was running it in the snow and I was fucking freezing cold. And the first 30K were absolutely fucking brutal. And I had just called my girlfriend and I said, hey, you know, while I'm in the middle of the city, I'm like a good 30 minutes like walk from my house. I was like, hey, could you come pick me up? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. And literally right after I got off the phone with her, I thought to myself, you know, you didn't come this far just to come this far. You can still walk. You can still somewhat jog. You're not like completely dead fucking tired. I had really prepared myself with like having some runner's gels and some fucking a little piece of like fruit leathers, like those little gummy things, just to kind of you know, keep myself going, keep that carb and sugar intake up. And I was drinking tons of water. So I was like, you know, I hit the 30K mark and I realized the very first lesson that I ran that I learned from running this, you know, marathon that I ended up running, which is I set my initial goal too small and I committed to too little because I had this feeling thinking that I should go for the full 42 kilometers and I had set my sights too low and just aimed at just 30K. And because I was actually more capable than I was giving myself credit for, I knew I was selling myself short and I knew I had to attempt the 42 kilometers instead of just 30. And it doesn't really seem like much, but for me, it was a huge battle because I had never run this much already. So I had already set a benchmark for myself. I had already set a milestone, but I was wanting to have a little bit more. And so I just had this experience basically where I knew I was selling myself short. And so I returned my girlfriend. I texted her back. I said, don't come yet. Hold up. I'm going to finish this shit. And she was awesome about it. She was patient about it because it took me quite a while after that. This is where I kind of learned like the next lesson, right? Because the first 30 kilometers, I was able to keep a pace of about 6.5 minutes a kilometer. The last 12 kilometers ended up taking me almost fucking 2 hours. The first 30 took me about just over 3 hours. It was like 3 hours and 15 or 20 minutes or something like that. The last 12K took me almost 2 hours. So the last 12K took me like 2/3 of the time that the first 30K took, even though it's only a third of the time. And the reason why is because I got to a point basically where I pushed myself, where my body was at the point where my calves were locking up and I couldn't bend my ankles well. I was running kind of flat-footed. My knees were starting to get jacked up. My quads were cramping. My hamstrings were cramping. My abs, I was getting those runner's stitches where I couldn't breathe. My fucking gut was cramping. Everything was cramping at about kilometer 35. And I realized the amount of times that our bodies and minds will play tricks on us. There was so many times where I found myself having this fucking debate of like, look, dude, your goal was 30K. You're at 35. You're at 36 now. You can fucking quit. Nobody knows that you're going for the extra 42 kilometers. But inside, I fucking knew. And so I knew that, you know, like I said, to return back to what I was saying is how many times our bodies and minds will play tricks on us because it didn't even come to my mind that I could just walk for a little bit, try and recuperate a little bit, and then jog for a little bit more. The goal was just to finish this fucking marathon. There's no one keeping track. There's no one keeping score. My goal at this point was just to fucking finish. I got to the point where I was fucking dead tired. My legs felt like they were about to snap underneath me. And I was like, as long as I can just keep fucking pushing, keep fucking pushing, keep fucking pushing. And every single kilometer, you know, I found myself thinking, okay, just one more kilometer, just keep fucking going. If I can just get to the end of this next block, you know, it just really put into perspective how many times that, you know, our brains will tell us this is it. This is all we've got. We've got nothing left in the gas tank when we still have, you know, 20, 30, sometimes 40% more gas left in the tank. And our bodies and our egos and our brains are just trying to keep us safe and comfortable and complacent and where we are when we can actually get much further than we think we can. I guess the third lesson that I learned from, you know, doing this marathon, and again, maybe you've run fucking 10 marathons, maybe you've run 10 minutes in your life, I don't know, but we're all at different points in our lives, and I understood for me that this was a big milestone, completing a marathon. I've never been a big runner. I like lifting weights naturally, and so cardio doesn't come easy to me. I smoked for a little bit of my life as well, so my lungs had that. Obviously, I'm a bit of a stoner, so there's that going for me as well. And so cardio is a big challenge for me. And for me, I tried my very best to prepare for this leading up to it. I was doing a little bit less cardio moving forward. The last couple of days leading up to this marathon, I was doing a lot more stretching, a lot more yoga, etc. But the third lesson that I learned from this was that, no matter how much we prepare in our lives, there's always going to be something that we forget. There's always going to be something that we didn't prepare for. For me, it was the snow. I did not prepare mentally for having to run in the snow. Again, I don't always have control of the conditions that I'm going to be operating in, and neither do you. Our lives sometimes are going to throw us curveballs. And for me, I woke up to run 30K, ended up running a marathon. But when I first woke up, it was fucking snowing out, and it was freezing. It was like probably -4, -5 degrees. And it was Christmas Eve, actually, as well. So I had all the excuses to just be like, yo, fuck it, I'm going to do it in a couple days. But I had prepared for it. And the biggest lesson was no matter how much I prepared, there's always going to be something that is going to come up, whether that be weather conditions or, again, another thing that I didn't do properly was prepare my calves for this. That's always something that, if you're a runner, if you're an athlete at all, that having super tight calves, having low ankle mobility, that can throw you off. And when your calves cramp up when you're running, you're fucked. And so for me, that was something I should have probably prepared a little bit more for, stretching out specific areas of my bodies instead of just my entire body. And just understand that, the real test when you feel like you want to be good at something happens when you hit your breaking point. And so you want to be a good parent. Being a good parent means being a good parent when you're at your fucking breaking point and you want to quit. You want to be a good carpenter or electrician or a tradesman. Being a good tradesman means doing a good job when you want to fucking walk off because you're so pissed off, or throw your wrench or throw your hammer. It's doing a good job in those moments. Or, if you consider yourself to be a good conversationalist or salesperson and you find yourself in a discussion, the real progress or the real test of how good you are at what you do comes when you want to fucking quit. When it gets so frustrating, when it gets so difficult, when it seems so unfair, when you're dealing with the worst type of people that fuck with you and ruin everything that you do, that's when the test comes, when you hit your breaking point. And so that was what I kind of went through, and I really appreciated that entire experience. I'm fired up, and that's, one of my buddies said it best. He said, that's a good feather to have in your cap. And I've talked about reflection recently, and that's something that I can reflect upon now. I can look back and, when I'm not feeling confident or when I don't feel capable enough to do something, whether it be physical or something that I have to deal with emotionally, I can remember this time that I struggled, persevered, and accomplished something. It might not have been pretty. It might not have been the best in the world, but it was my best fucking effort at that time. And so the last thing that I want to leave you with is, after I had finished this marathon and I had talked about running for the group and, dedicating that run to those people that have been kind of supporting the group and keeping the conversations going and supporting other people in the group, I was talking to them about the marathon and telling them about these lessons. And one of the people in this group, shared a message. And like I said, remember that this is Christmas Eve, right? And she shares a story basically saying that her niece had been hospitalized recently. And, she had an infection in her blood, and she's just a young girl, right? And they didn't think that they were going to be able to have her come home for Christmas. And on Christmas Eve, that same morning that I ran this marathon, the hospital contacted them and said, you can come and pick up this little girl. And, her sisters were just there jumping for joy, literally crying tears of joy. Just so ecstatic. And I could only imagine, I don't even know any of these people, but it literally made me shed a tear. And I could literally only imagine, how fucking scary it must be to be a child and have blood infections and not really understand why you're going through what you're going through, and why, for me, like, I would have found myself probably asking as a young kid, like, why me? Like, why is this shit happening to me? And then I never stop and think about the people that maybe, like her sisters, are going through this tough time where, maybe they have a family member that's fallen ill, or maybe they have someone that they've lost, and I think about all the people that just really want to just spend the time with their loved ones. And I'm over here thinking about the fucking struggles I faced on my run this morning. And it put into perspective that there's, I do think that there needs to be emphasis on like kind of making yourself uncomfortable as much as possible, going out and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, right? And just making yourself uncomfortable and making yourself progress, because I truly do think that, doing things like that the things that you don't want to do naturally, I think that making yourself uncomfortable prepares you for life's hardships. But then when we hear about someone that's actually going through those hardships, it really just puts our struggles into perspective and understand that we have so much to be grateful for if we just take a second. And like I've said in the last couple episodes, just reflect back on the things that we do have to be grateful for and the things that, could be taken away from us at any split fucking second. And so that's the experience, the little lesson I wanted to share with you guys, reflection on my little marathon that I ran and some of the other events that happened that day. Just remember, don't set your goals too fucking small. Remember as well that your brain, your body, your ego, it's going to play tricks on you to make you want to fucking feel like you want to quit. And no matter how much you prepare, there's going to be conditions or things that happen that also make you want to quit. But the real test of how good you are at what you do, or the real test of your true character, is truly how you react under these different pressures, under these different struggles, and when you're reaching that breaking point that you feel yourself reaching. And above all else, it's a reminder to just kind of look back at the things that we do have to be grateful for and understand that there is people that are suffering with very fucking serious things right now. And if you're not one of those people, you're very fortunate. And you should take that into consideration the next time you feel like you're having a bad day. Because there are people that are fucking suffering and they need you to push through your adversity and your struggles so that you can be an ear for them or a shoulder to cry on. So thank you so much. Like I said, if you align with this kind of shit, if you feel like someone needs to hear this message, share the show, help me grow. That's all I got. Thank you so much. Much love and peace out, motherfuckers. Oh, and before I jump off, actually, here's a little reminder. If you want to join that group, if you want to join that community, please just reach out to me on Instagram. I'll throw you in the WhatsApp group. My Instagram is @MarkD Henriksen. Just as a little reminder, you jump in and have the daily discussions that we have surrounding mental health, and we have weekly Zoom calls as well. Thank you so much. That's all I got. Much love and peace out, motherfuckers.